A tentative deal has been reached between employers and workers in the strike that has halted shipments in and out of British Columbia ports for nearly 2 weeks. A statement from the BC Maritime Employers Association says it has reached a tentative agreement with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. It says the 4-year deal is subject to ratification by both parties, so details are not yet being released. Greater Vancouver Board of Trade President and CEO Bridget Anderson estimates that $8.9 billion in trade has been disrupted since the strike began. Well, joining us now to discuss the impacts of this strike is Ms. Bonnie G, the president of the BC Chamber of Shipping. Ms. G, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So finally, some good news after 13 days of this strike. So what are some of the latest updates you can give us on this tentative deal and the considerations around it?
Great. Well, just up to the deadline today of 10:30 a.m., we heard that the parties actually reached a tentative agreement on a 4-year deal. We don't actually have all the details of the agreement, but we're pleased that it didn't require the workers being legislated back to work. So we're excited. Everyone has got the wheels in motions to get everyone back to work and the vessels moving again. So
how soon can we expect the return to normal operations at BC ports following this agreement?
well, my understanding is that as of 4:30 this evening or this afternoon, vessels are able to tie up, and then starting tomorrow morning, the gangs will start working again. So our
Good
vessels
news.
are en route, moving into the berths as we speak. So.
Perfect. Now we've heard of thousands of shipping containers, a huge backlog here. So, how long would it take for port workers to make up for all this lost productivity and clear this backlog?
Yeah, it was concerning. The information we were getting from some of our supply chain partners was that it's going to take 5 to 7 times the duration of the strike. So we could be looking at about six to 7 weeks to recover from the backlog.
6 to 7 weeks. All right. Now, for some maybe deeper perspective here, how much flows through the Port of Vancouver and how had this strike impacted your clients so far? What have you been hearing from them?
So our organization, we represent the ocean carriers that call into the West Coast ports here. And so a number of our carriers have been holding offshore, waiting to see what happens. So we've had, I think, about 14 vessels waiting at anchorages or offshore. And some actually were debating turning back and returning back to origin. And so it affects their port calls. As you know, that a number of the container vessels have scheduled port rotations. And so when they're held up at one particular port, it affects their entire all the ports in that rotation. So it's quite impactful for sure. And the cost of burning extra fuel, waiting offshore it's not helpful either. So.
And we've heard that there were perishable items in some of these containers. So, have any of these perishable items been lost or expired amid this strike?
Not that I'm aware of yet. Certainly, when we come to resumption of services, we are looking to prioritize some of those goods that may be more sensitive and more critical. And so we're hoping that the terminals can help us in expediting some of those cargoes through.
And if we were to find maybe some spoiled or rotten items in these shipping containers, what is the process of handling something like that? And would that add to this backlog in any way?
It could tentatively, I mean, the goods would be damaged in that case if they were spoiled, and then there'd just be the typical insurance claim. So there may be a shortage of supplies if that's the case.
All right. And do we have any metrics to maybe quantify the economic cost of this disruption at all?
So we did hear, as you said, I think $9 million of trade being held offshore. So it was adding up each day, but so hopefully now that they're back to work, it should be much less.
Hopefully, indeed, ma'am. Now, just about a minute left here, but meanwhile, we know Canada's reputation as a trading partner is at risk here. So, what are some of the steps that are likely to be taken to rebuild our status as a trading nation?
We've been working quite closely with Transport Canada, and throughout the whole labor disruption, they've been quite helpful in ensuring that everyone involved is well aware of what's been going on throughout the negotiations. So there's a lot of work to ensure that our ports are more resilient to not only labor disruption but climate change as well. We've had several years of disruption with forest fires and atmospheric river events. So unfortunately, I think this is, our future will continue to see disruptions, whether it be labor or not. So we're all working together to come up with a better system to ensure that we do have contingency plans in place when these disruptions do continue to happen. So
Lots to keep our eyes on. Ms. G, thank you again for your time today.
thank you.